student talk in your class.
All right.
Oh yeah. And then talk moves, right? This is the webinar, and we will have a later PLC, which will be really hopefully participant driven. So we want to kind of jumpstart that with these two webinars that we have coming up. So we'll be talking about talk moves, practicing some talk moves with your peers, and just yeah, we have a few spots today where we really want to do that, and we just sometimes just hope that people can lean in and try that out. Reflect on why using the talk moves can help in your classroom. So looking at that student engagement, looking at the formative assessment aspects of it, there's multiple benefits to that. All right, so just to play it up, here's a couple, if you were asked to, in front of everyone, compare string theory to quantum mechanics, right? So that is, what makes discourse hard. And if you were asked to do that and not feeling comfortable with that, you would, just take a moment to think about how you would feel, what space would you be in? And then, of course, the question is, would you be in a learner space? Or even something more, the electoral college to a 5-year-old. When you don't know where to start, lots of times there's that silence, and you may even figure it out, but then there's been quite a bit of silence. So nothing wrong with silence and private think time. In fact, we want to have that structured, but we want that to be intentional. And then describe a humiliating experience. And again, that is probably not a question we would ever ask students, but other things that they may interpret that way, right? Like if they have to explain something that there's some expectation for them and they don't feel confident, that feels like they may feel like they're being set up to be humiliated. So those are just some things to put in the front of our mind. And it's also one where, with the student talk things we do today, obviously educators probably feel a little bit different, but you might even have some of those, maybe not to the same extent, probably not to the same extent that students do. Okay, well, I think I jumped one. Excellent. So, yep, we have that skip slide. So, Susan, I'll hand it over to you for why engage students in discourse.
Great. So we really believe that talking is integral to human learning. And there is a STEM teaching tool brief. If you want to dive into that more, we'll put the link in the chat here, the research around that. And in order to process and make sense of and learn from ideas and observations and experiences, students must talk about them. This is really the process of learning, and it teaches students how to think and articulate their ideas. And I don't know if you can recall a time when you were a student and you were asked to explain something to another student. And a lot of times you find out, I don't really know that as well as I could, or this is what I know. And then someone else would say something, you go, oh, that makes sense. So this idea of students engaging in conversation with their peers is really an important part of learning. And we really want to move from a classroom where teachers are doing most of the talking, or to where students are doing much of the talking and heavy lifting and thinking. So it broadens participation and engagement. And we're thinking of this in terms of an equity standpoint, so that we want all students engaging in productive talk, especially emerging bilinguals, introverted students, disengaged students, and historically marginalized students. These are students who may not speak up in a classroom that does not provide opportunities and support for discourse. If we're only calling on students who are raising their hand, that may be a small portion of students in the classroom, and a small portion of time is spent with just a few students talking and the rest silent. And I know, as a personal story, I managed to go through probably my entire K-12 plus most of my college undergraduate work with not talking, and like making it a goal to not speak in class. And it wasn't till graduate school where there were these procedures and people were sitting in circles and talking to each other that I learned how to have that academic discourse. And that's way too long to wait. It supports language learning. Oki Lee is a big leader in this, about all students, all standards. She helped write the appendix for the NGSS that provided the case studies for what NGSS looks like in certain demographic populations. And as students are speaking, any student, not just emerging bilinguals, they're learning the academic language for that topic. It can be culturally responsive, especially if you're asking students what they already know about a science topic, what they've already observed, what they might know from their own homes. And we want to make sure that we have norms that support talk and provide a safe place for sharing and refining ideas, and also honoring this other kind of, we call it fonts of knowledge that students have from their family and cultural experiences. And allowing students to teach and learn from each other can help clarify concepts and communicate ideas in different ways that allow more access points for learning. So there's two studies here, and we're going to put the links in the chat here for those of you who want to dive deeper. From Sedova et al., that there is a strong link between a given student's talk time and the number of utterances that feature reasoning, and a positive link between individual participation and achievement was observed in all students, regardless of the socioeconomic background or gender. And in the Freeman study et al., it actually, active learning and discourse led to increases in performance that would raise letter grades by half of a letter. And there's a graph there that they showed the difference between students that were in a lecture versus an active class and the percent of failure. So moving that bar to where fewer students are failing is a goal of all of us in education. So there's 4 goals for productive discussions, and this is from the Inquiry Project, which is one of the foundational initial research projects that really looked into discourse, and we're going to actually share a couple of things from them with you today. But these 4 goals are the goals for productive discussions. Goal 1, help individual students share, expand, and clarify their own thinking. Goal 2, help students listen carefully to one another. And this listening is as important as talking, active listening. Goal 3, help students deepen their reasoning. And goal 4, help students think with others.
Nice. We did skip one, and I want to go back to it, and it's a great time, actually, I think, to do that. So in the chat, and the idea here, we do that waterfall. So we're going to take them one at a time. And again, when I ask, give you a little bit of think time and time to type up, and then we'll all try to hit enter at the same time. So I'll read the question. What is a goal you have for student talk in your classroom, or what drew you to this webinar? So take about want 60 seconds. And if you could think about that and type it up, but wait to hit return, if you would. About 20 seconds. Okay, if you'd hit return, and then we'll see it. Yeah. You ever want to scroll back up? It's nice. Yeah. Yep.
These are great. So just expanding, like getting more tools, it looks like, learning new strategies. We're going to be practice some of these things online today. So they can work online.
Yeah, this is great. People really see the idea of it deepening understanding, key concepts, real chance for formative assessment as the teacher.
Revealing misconceptions. That's a great way too, as well. And that's that formative assessment piece. I had a colleague who would, if a student was shy and the teacher was trying to listen, if the teacher would face the student group, that child would never talk. So she would go purposefully and put her back to the student she wanted to hear, but be facing a different group so she could hear behind her what that student was saying.
Yeah. And they're also noticing that people have students that might be reluctant to talk. So that we will talk about some strategies for that too. Okay, wow, that's good. And I still haven't even made it all the way down.
We've got some great responses here, Bradford.
Yeah, this is excellent. Okay, so let's try that second one here. What is a barrier? We've had some of that already, but what is a barrier you've encountered with having student talk at the level you hope for? So again, maybe we'll try another just under a minute. Want some little bit of think time before you have to write it up. So just about 10 seconds. All right, if you're willing to hit enter again.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of fear or anxiousness around sharing or being wrong. Yeah, the fear of judgment. Feeling like they may not know. Yeah, so big class sizes.
And this is why having protocols can help, and having procedures that allow that entry in for students, and also students talking with just a partner or a small group before they're being asked to share their ideas with a classroom, so that they have time to practice what they're saying and getting feedback from others on their ideas so they can refine them. I think the hardest thing for shy students or students that are uncertain or may not know the topic as well as they would like is the cold call in the front of the full classroom. That is terrible for some students to have to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And then just moving along to what is the success you've had, right? Like this is challenging. This is one of the most challenging aspects of teaching is encouraging student talk, facilitating student talk. What is a success you've had? You know, there's a lot of expertise in this webinar and sometimes harder for teachers to share out, but yeah, what is a success? So about 30 seconds. Forward to this one. If you are willing to hit enter. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Think, pair, share, practice, 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 patience. Letting students prepare in small group, share large group, talk moves with an end product,
Mhm.
small wins, philosophical chairs.
I love what Heather wrote, getting some of her English language learners to participate, even if they want to speak in Spanish. We all listen and then someone translates for the rest. That's a great equity move.
Oh, this is great. And one thing to say is, you know, as we know, that's why we're, well, I don't want to speak for other people, but one reason why we keep hosting this every year is we just know that this really is, you know, something through collaboration and even revisiting a strategy you tried before, it may be the right time for it.
I like how Lindsay kind of mentioned just how she's arranging her tables into groups. This kind of physical change to the classroom, if you are able to do that, can make a huge difference in students being able to talk to each other. It's much harder. It can be done if students are in rows facing forward, but if they're in table groups, it becomes much easier if you are able to change the physical structure of your classroom.
Nice. Okay. I gotta try to manage all of these screens. Excellent. All right. So just to put these things in the front of our head, right? That's what a lot of not totally new ideas, but just to put it in the front of our head and to set us up for the remainder of the webinar. You know, just that common pattern a lot of times, saw some of that, you know, the student to teacher, you know, just that pressure of that student with the response to in front of the whole group and the limited number, especially large class sizes that can really limit how many. So where are there opportunities to, where are some of the low-hanging fruit to get a lot of student talk is talking to each other. That also gives them a chance to be listening to each other. Yep. All right. So just putting it again, just a visual too, how many people are talking in the room? That's a big thing that we have heard, and why a lot of the pattern sequence tries to move a lot of that discussion to the small group discussion. All right, I'll just give you a chance. I'll give you a chance to read this. A lot of good information, but I'll let you take that in first. And another big piece that increasingly I'm hearing resonate with a lot of teachers is that student voice and formative assessment is a very both time effective, like in the moment, a chance for the teacher to make a move to differentiate the instruction or change the instruction based on that understanding. And so just as we take on complex ideas, always I think it's a good thing to say that being aware of teacher time and how much is asked for in the classroom and then out of the classroom. Formative assessment and student talk is a really high leverage activity.
So
yeah,
I don't know if this is so part of the work that we did last year with the student discourse PLC was kind of expanding on this talk activities flowchart that was from STEM teaching tools. And one of the things that really struck me when I first saw this was this idea of using different strategies at for different purposes, like actually thinking about what is the purpose of the talk activity. And when you look at this talk flow diagram, which we're going to put the link in the chat, you can see that there's salmon colored ones. These are the ones that were from STEM teaching tools. And the yellow ones are ones that are in and used in the patterns curriculum that we talked about with our teachers in the PLC. So we're going to actually use this today to show you the different protocols that we're going to talk with you about and where you would use those in the curriculum. Each one of these in the talk protocol flowchart that Bradford put the link in, each box, as you can, is linked to the actual protocol. So it's an active document that takes you to the protocol to be able to use it right when you need it.
Yeah, so, and maybe Susan said this, but I didn't hear it, and but I was checking the chat too.
Yeah.
A lot of this has been added to by the PLC. So there's a chance that we are going to transfer this to Miro, which is like just a really large spreadsheet and a little bit easier to navigate. Zoom in, zoom out. It is a nice one that we hope to, through the webinars and the PLCs, continue to build and keep it. Sometimes it can be overwhelming once too many, but sometimes you also just want options here. So that is a project for this year's student discourse group.
And there was a mention in the chat that the links aren't working. The links actually go to a slide in the slide deck. So currently this flow chart here, I don't know, Bradford, if you can click on the link and just show how it would work.
Yeah.
And just pick one. And then you just go and it pops down to the slide.
Yeah. So There's a peek.
Okie doke. So we're just going to start off with some basics. And the reason we're starting with these because we don't know where people are coming into the webinar, but these are 3 different types of protocols that can be used in a full class discussion. So we figured that most teachers were having all class discussions, and we wanted to provide some supports for teachers to make those better. So we're just going to go through these fairly quickly. So the purpose of the activity to reach consensus and moderate discussion, and you're curious about what they're thinking. We're going to start with a think, pair, share, which everybody should be doing. And then we're going to go to the talk moves checklist and talk moves and show 2 videos of these in action in the classroom so you can see what it's about. And part of it is teachers asking questions of students that allows them to maybe voice what another student is saying, to show that they're listening to other students. So it's to provide opportunities for students to show that they're both can talk and listen to what other students are saying.
Nice. So, oh, I'm on the wrong screen here. All right, think, pair, share, right? Already came out multiple times in the chat. Just want to put it out there. This is in the patterns physics, and I think patterns biology. They went with orange because that yellow maybe isn't the best choice. So always glad for that feedback. There's a lot of places to change that, but yes, here, this is something. Oh, I wonder if this isn't linked. I do have just a little picture on, linked here. If I go to this one, this is the one to print out. So you can print out 4, and I'll pull up that picture in a second, but just literally print them 4 to a sheet and then tape them to a desk.
And that way students know if they're an A or a B and who they're supposed to talk to.
Exactly. And we just said that, hinted at it earlier of like how much time, students are just sometimes reluctant, right? We know this. And I've actually now started my class, same thing, right? After the pandemic, I saw big drops. Students have always been a little reluctant to talk, but after the pandemic, it took a noticeable dip in my community. And the AB, just having who is supposed to go first and I was mentioning that I actually do an around once every day. I have up to this point. I am kind of pushing it to the max, but even a small little script, but it's really nice, and just ask them to play along. And for the most part, I gave a little formative, how's class going? And it was almost all, I wouldn't say they were excited, but they all said they saw the value in that around once, and knowing who should talk first, and it would switch from A1 to A2 to B3. All right, so we put that over and just tried to model it a little bit in here, that think time, right? Sometimes we jump right to the talking, and even with the A1, A2 numbering, if that A1 starts to talk right away, that individual doesn't have a lot, A2 or B3, they don't have time to think. And we just know that sometimes when students get it sprung on them, they're reluctant. So no surprise, but the think, pair, share can be really valuable. And this is not too new, so we'll keep moving.
And I just think the biggest twist, like you were saying, is you're taking the decisions out of students of who am I going to talk to, and having that student turn their back. And, like this way, the expectation is really clear. A1 is pairing with A2. B3 is pairing with B4. Nobody's left out. It's the placemat, I'm assuming, is it permanently attached to the desk, Bradford, or is it always there?
Yeah, I can pull it up here. And as you talk, if you want the talk moves checklist, if you intro that, I'll get it pulled up.
Get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, that's my watch. That's funny.
Here's a picture right here. So yeah, can people see that?
I think that's great.
It
And
just takes
this is
down.
one of those advantages of if you are able to have a table or 4 tables put together of helping facilitate student discourse, that simple physical change to your classroom.
Yep, excellent.
So talk moves checklist. This is if we go to slide 26.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, let me get it. So many things. There we go.
We're going to show just a very like a snippet of this video of this teacher facilitating a full class discussion. And what you also need to notice is, and I saw this in the chat, is that students having a common experience, a common lab, a common activity. You can see the students have their notes there with them. This helps students talk, to have something to refer to that they've all done together, a shared experience that they can speak about, helps break down the barrier for students who have difficulty in speaking.
Yeah, I'll hit play and
Yeah,
let me
hit
know.
play just a couple minutes, Bradford, for the video.
And then let me do, sorry about that. Let me do one check. I didn't share screen for optimize. I'm going to stop share and reshare to optimize for video. Oh my gosh, I lost my whole screen. What happened? Huh. Okay, well, sorry about that. I don't know if I closed my whole window.
And you're not sharing your screen anymore.
Yeah, I got to, yep, I'm going to, when I stopped share, I think I closed it. So I'm opening, sorry, I'm gonna, okay, here. All right, now I'm on the, I got to get back to that slide. Yep, there we go.
Many teachers find it challenging to hold classroom discussions that are academically productive. All too often, we find ourselves going back to the traditional form of teaching, recitation. The teacher asks a question, and students attempt to provide the right answer. There's no discussion, and not much talk about the reasoning that led to the answer. Teachers who are able to orchestrate productive discussions consistently are usually skilled at getting 4 different things to happen. First, they are able to help all the students to share, expand, and clarify their reasoning out loud to the whole group. If only a few students share their reasoning, you don't have a discussion, you have a monologue, or at best, a dialogue. Second, they are able to help students learn to listen carefully to one another. They support students' efforts to really understand what their classmates are saying. Third, these teachers are able to get students to dig deeper into their reasoning. They don't let students stop with superficial answers. They keep the focus on deepening the thinking with data or evidence around core scientific concepts. And fourth, these teachers are able to get students to think with others, to really work with the ideas of their classmates. Their students don't stop with just giving their own ideas. They consider and take up the thoughts and ideas of others. None of these 4 steps are easy. There can be many different challenges. Some students don't feel comfortable sharing their thinking at first. They may not be used to listening carefully to what other students say. There is often a lack of clarity in what students say and think. But these teachers have found ways to make it happen consistently, and their students benefit from this productive talk. Over time, by participating in discussions, their students become more powerful reasoners. They get better at explaining their ideas, and they become better science learners. So how do these teachers manage to create productive discussions? Researchers have found that teachers who are skillful at this draw on a toolkit of strategies. Collectively, we refer to these strategies as productive talk moves. They are simple questions and statements that help students to participate in the 4 steps we just described. Some talk moves help students share, expand, and clarify their reasoning. These are moves such as the say more move, revoicing. So let me see if I've got your thinking right. Are you saying that? And wait time.
Julia? Like things that belong to the earth and like nature around us.
And what do you mean that they belong to the earth? Can you kind of explain that a little bit more?
When I said they belong to the earth.
Okay, well, what I heard Kyla say was actually a little bit different than what I heard Alicia say. So Kyla, you're saying that if I have 3 cups, I need to put the same volume in each cup? And Alicia, if I listened to you correctly, were you saying that you need to pour different amounts into the cups?
So like you have 3 different cups and you put A in one cup, put B in a different cup, and you see in the cup and see if they have the same.
In the clip you just watched, the teacher didn't simply repeat what Kyla and Alicia had said. She checked back to see if she had fully understood. This revoicing move isn't simple repetition, because the teacher is asking if she heard right. This allows the students to clarify their ideas so that everyone can build on their thoughts. Other talk moves help students focus on listening to what others are saying and to take responsibility for trying to understand. Who can put that into their own words? Who understood and thinks they can repeat that idea? Other talk moves help the teacher make sure that the focus stays on digging deeper into student reasoning. Why do you think that? Where do you see evidence in the data? And some talk moves actually encourage students to engage with one another's thinking and reasoning. Do you agree or disagree, and why? Who can add on to the idea that Keisha is building? What do you think of her idea? This toolkit of talk moves helps you open up the conversation so that students do the heavy lifting. The talk moves can help you support your students to clarify and formulate their own ideas so that students get to hear lots of competing ideas, even ideas that may turn out in the end not to be correct. When students discuss an incorrect idea, it often leads to a deeper understanding of the science concept. Teachers who use these moves effectively find that all students, even English language learners and those who have struggled in the past, make significant gains in learning and conceptual understanding, gains that show up in student writing as well as on standardized tests. This introduction to talk moves is followed by 4 segments that contain video clips of teachers using these talk moves in
Stop,
action.
Bradford.
Each segment in this talking.
So I'm going to share the next slide, 27 here, which is the talk moves checklist. And when I first started doing talk in my classroom many years ago, this was the major resource that was available to me at the time. And I kept a copy up in the front of the classroom when we were having discussions to help me learn what kinds of questions I needed to be asking my students. And it changed the culture of my classroom, just this one piece. And I find that even now when I'm in meetings with adults, I'm using the same questions to have this respectful conversation with others, even with my husband. What is your evidence for that? Why do you think that? Can you say more about that? Did I hear you correctly? Is this what you said? These kinds of things in a full class discussion where you're modeling this, you will find that students will start asking other students these same questions in small group conversations if you model them in large group class discussions as well. So we've put the link there. This is a valuable resource, at least it was for me. This next video is a high school English classroom or it's English. But what really was valuable about seeing this, and we're going to show this clip, is that each student has a copy of these talk moves taped on their desk, kind of like Bradford did with the AB placemat. These are actually taped on the desk, and you'll see, instead of the teacher kind of leading all of the questions, that the students are talking to each other and asking these questions. So we just wanted to show you what this could look like in your own classroom.
These are the keys to participating in a conversation fully.
Sometimes we all need a little bit of a kickstarter to feel like we can contribute. Children are going to struggle a bit, depending on how confident they feel in speaking up in class. And yet this teacher wants everybody in the class to feel valued. So the kids are all learning phrases that can inspire other kids to contribute more easily.
We're trying to build a conversation here that is a community of caring and respect. So look at your talk moves on the table today, and I have a Post-it note here for you. Talk moves are essentially sentence starters that students can use to get themselves into the conversation and to draw other people into the conversation.
By the government, and they just can't like figure out what to do.
I taped the talk moves right on the table so that they would be ever present in everyone's mind. Today, I want you to keep track of your talk moves. Every time they used a talk move, they put a check on their sticky note. So if somebody at your table looks like they don't have a talk move check mark yet, invite them into the conversation. How could you do that?
Say like, what do you think?
Definitely. Would you use their name?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Everything about activating a child's cognitive skills begins with activating their social connectedness. Verbalizing and using language and working with peers creates that kind of social stimulus that drives the development of the brain.
I pretty much look at the thing every single time to see if there's like something I could say, like a clarifying question. Can you explain more about like why he would get in trouble?
He spray painted something on his rival soccer team's skull, and he like, when you ask a person a clarifying question, it's either, oh, I heard you said, or can you repeat what you said, or to add on to.
They help enormously with language learners. They give everybody a platform to jump into a conversation because half the sentence is there for them already. But they also challenge other types of learners who may be accustomed to doing independent work and they need a bridge to collaborate more with a group. It pushes kids out of their comfort zone of social conversations, and it moves them more towards a professional and an academic kind of register.
All his accomplishments and his past, like all the other marches he had, like Martin Luther King, his other previous marches, and he wants to his next march.
I heard you say previous marches, like, does it say anything about like?
Yeah, like he was in Martin Luther King marches.
I do talk moves because in order to have a great discussion, everyone has to feel like they're part of it and valued. And when they walk away, they really have bridged a gap with someone that maybe they wouldn't have necessarily talked to or talked to on that level.
This teacher is aware of children having different levels of comfort and discomfort, of making their skills visible. And she's getting kids to support each other's participation with these talk moves. This teacher created a pathway for every single child in this class to belong.
I put the link.
keys.
I put the link for the printable talk moves in the chat. And at the end of the webinar today, you will be given a link to the document that has all of the protocols that we linked into the chat in one place. So you'll have it.
Nice. So now we actually want to have you put something into the chat, just reflection. And we were thinking around twice. So the first time, right? This is a kind of a easily accessible move. So what is the value of using talk moves to guide class discussion? And give you a little bit of time, but I'm still talking here. So I'll just finish it that we're going to have you go around the first time and then read what other people are. So in the second time that you enter something, want it to be something that you're aiming for something that hasn't been said yet. And that may be hard, or if you can just say it a different way. So the most important things need to be said multiple times, multiple ways. So the second round, if you could rephrase something that you saw that was important or add something new, we'll just go try to get everyone to do 2 responses, but space them out a little bit so you have a chance to read after your first response. So we'll go ahead and get started. As soon as you want to put something in, what's the value in this? You know, a lot of it is obvious, but worth saying the most important things multiple times, multiple ways. Awesome.
Great. Setting students up for success, helping students take chances. And you notice that they talked about not only emerging bilinguals, but students who are shy. That would have been me. The reason I was able to not speak up for 12 years plus was being very shy as a child, as a student.
Excellent. If you're willing to put in a second one, rephrasing something that you read, or a new one if you still have some new ones. Yeah, I heard that multiple people talking about using academic language.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes even being okay that those initial forays into the academic language, they're not using academic, like precise words. Sometimes they will be talking about their conceptual understanding, but as they talk more and as they move through a unit and deepen their knowledge of the content, they will come to those academic, using those academic words as well.
Great, thank you. Appreciate those chat messages. All right, next up.
So we're going to go to the driving question board, and this is something that is an NGSS kind of basic. We find it through I think all the physics units and chemistry units, and I'm not sure about biology, to be honest, but it's our goal that they will be there eventually. And I think Bradford's going to talk a little bit about it.
Excellent. Yeah. So we have the example. I didn't know if you were going to do the general and then I was going to do the example,
yeah.
but I'm happy to jump in.
Well, if you go to the next slide, I don't
Yep.
know what's until you go to the slide.
Oh.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I was going to do this just to show you where we are on the flow chart here. We've moved over from reaching consensus where the talk moves live to where are you in the unit. And this is something that's done at the beginning of the unit where we create the driving question board. And then we have a protocol called sharing my question. Now, is this the only time that you refer to the driving question board? No, the driving question board can be referred to throughout the entire unit, but this is where we kind of create the initial driving question board that's usually tied to the anchoring phenomenon of the unit. So just a little bit, how does it support equity? It helps to shift the focus of learning from an individual experience to a collective one. And we're going to actually do this together, so you'll see how this works. We really ideally want every student to contribute a question, and we want everybody's question to be part of the driving question board. It may be the exact same question as 4 other students have, and that's okay. That's actually part of the protocol, is to acknowledge that students will have similar questions. Sometimes the questions are, like there's only one, and it might be that you will not get to that question as part of your instruction, and that's okay too. We don't want to shut down students asking questions. It's one of the science and engineering practices. And in high school, we are not really always providing opportunities for students to really feel that that what they are wondering is part of science education. And that's part of our move in NGSS, is that students' questions about the world and what they observe and wonder about can actually be answered through science. So I think that, and we often, teachers will keep this up as a visual reminder of what student questions were there at the beginning and as they go through the unit. And so by the time they get to the end of the unit, there is a protocol where students can share that, was their question answered by the instruction. And that's a very powerful move if you can do that. So this is just a example that it's from middle school, but it's one that I actually had a picture of, and it's one that I wrote an article for NSTA. How can I see the setting sun, crescent moon, Venus, and Jupiter at the same time? It happened when I was sitting on a deck at Cannon Beach, and I happened to look over the ocean, and I could see all of these things, and it made me wonder, well, what does that mean? Like, how can I see both a planet that's closer to the sun and further from the sun than me at the same time, in addition to seeing the setting sun and the moon? And it's like, like my model of the solar system could not help me answer that question. And so that was my own personal wondering. And so we have students wondering that. We set up this scenario and we had them ask questions. And this is the kind of the protocol. You will use a lot of sticky notes, and it's something that is part of the driving question board, kind of required materials. And the idea is you only write one question per note so that you can move them around and move them and categorize them. And students are, need to be prepared to share with the group, and they need to know when they're doing that sharing, is their question building on a previous idea or is it a new idea? So we go to the protocol, which is the next slide. And this is the protocol for that. And Bradford is going to go over this. Actually, you're going to do this with a physics phenomenon. And he's going to talk about that kind of specifically when we do it. So if we go to the next couple of slides, these are just examples of how those sticky notes can get grouped. And so students use that protocol and they're clustering the sticky notes with each other, but as a classroom, they're kind of coming up with, what is the topic? Like, what is the thing that's tying all of these together? Why did we think that these questions were related? And for this particular classroom, these were period one. These were the 5 categories that came up with students with their questions. And that essentially was the unit that we had already planned for instruction. And then these are just other examples in other classrooms, other driving question boards, and how teachers are categorizing them. And you notice that they're keeping them also posted and up on the wall if you're able to do that. Sometimes that's difficult in a shared classroom, but if you have your own classroom and can keep them posted, it's very powerful.
Great. Thank you for those examples. Here is one from physics. And what we want to call out is just the feedback that people, teacher after teacher was giving on the driving question board, that even that sometimes was a big jump. And so what are some modifications? So this was a collaborative effort to just say, hey, how do we make these driving question boards work? So we are going to show you some steps that we've now added in before that moment where they're writing on the sticky notes. So this one is, I'll show the video, and some people probably are already familiar with this. So the video is just about 60 seconds long. So I will there's the one thing students have, you could use this as the launch, but there's also just a short reading that says, how do we design an app for a thrilling, safe bungee jump? And so this is our anchoring phenomena that we come back to again and again. So I'll play it. And you are thinking, what are questions you have about this phenomena? What are questions you would have as an engineer or scientist to create an app to make a thrilling, safe bungee jump ride? Okay, so we'll watch it.
So we're here today at Bray Lakes to adjudicate the highest dunk of a biscuit by a bungee jumper.
Oops. Okay, so I'm going to go through these steps, and then we're going to have you in breakout rooms. So the breakout rooms are in that small group. So this would be at your table. So again, we used to do the driving question board right as a whole class. And that just, the feedback was that wasn't just the right fit. So what are our driving questions? What do we as engineers need to know or measure, investigate, or model to understand to create a safe, thrilling bungee jump ride? So I'm going to go over all the steps before we go in the breakout room. And I'll just show that. So 1, start. Verbally just describe what happens during the bungee jump. Then, using a black marker, illustrate with pictures and words the important moments in the bungee jump. Right? So it'd be like, oh, at the beginning, at the end, maybe in the middle. But so we're just starting verbally, just again, that low hanging, what happens during a bungee jump, and using a black marker. When I closed, I had all this stuff open, but lost it when I think closed everything. So how are you going to do that? When you're in your breakout room, there's these pre-made text boxes. So instead of a sticky note, and actually, this part is actually done on a whiteboard with students. You'll just copy and paste, Control C, Control V, and you might say the end of the jump. So you're going to put and you'll just keep making these, and this is all color coded. So, okay, so in black, sorry about that. Okay, black marker, what are just important moments in the jump? So also, we need a timekeeper. There's not another slide, but I'll just say it now. There's about 2 minutes for each of these, because we really do want to give everyone a chance to talk, and then put 1 or 2 things in the black marker text. Then the second, for minute 3 and 4, use the red tag. So you'll go and grab the red, click here to type. And you're going to go through and identify what variables might affect the end result. Right? So maybe the weight of the jumper, students always say that. So that would be in red. So something that would be important, again, I would copy and paste, drag this over, and be like mass of jumper, although students usually say weight. So mass of jumper. Okay. Then, so that's 1 and 2, minutes 1 and 2 for the first part, speaking verbally and just saying, what are the important moments? Minutes 3 and 4, identify the variables. We'll go to the next slide. So minutes 5 and 6, gallery walk. So just want to give you a chance after you've marked it up. And of course, in person, students would be walking around, because this would be done on a whiteboard at their desk. They would walk around and see how other groups. In the virtual setting, after, I'll just jump to breakout room 4. So whatever breakout room you are is your group number, but now you can have access. So if you want to see what group 3 is doing, you can just move up and down the slides. And so you can check on group 5 and, hey, what's group 1 doing? All right, so that is the gallery walk for the 2 minutes. Then you're going to come back to your home group for the final 2 minutes. using a blue marker, which in the virtual setting will be this blue tabs. You're going to iterate your system model based on what you learned from the gallery walk. Was there something that you left out? Was there another way to phrase what you had? All right. And just to complete the steps, so that you're going to do steps 1 through 4 in breakout rooms. And then step 5 is the original step 1, that sticky note for each unique idea. But you can see some of the front loading we're now doing before the sticky note. Okay, so I'm going to pause there to check the chat. Questions? Your breakout room number is your group number. Thank you, Susan. I see she put the slide deck in the breakout rooms. So
And
also,
part of why Bradford has added this initial part in the steps 1 through 4 is that in high school, students, when they ask questions, they should be asking testable questions. That's part of the NGSS learning progression. And having students interact and talking before they're asking questions increases the likelihood that they will actually ask a testable question.
yeah. Yes, excellent. So I will get the breakout rooms, and your breakout room number is your group number.
And that's where you go to in the slide deck that I put in the chat.
Okay, they are basically ready to go. You know, some people have a situation where they're not able to join. So we got 4 to 5 people. So try to make that work. The one thing we do ask is if someone could be a timekeeper. If the first thing you could do in your group after maybe introductions is someone would keep it, there will be an 8-minute timer in the corner. So basically roughly 2 minutes for each step. Okay, with that, one last thing is the steps are at the top of the slide deck that you're in, and your breakout room number will be your group number. All right, with that, I will open the rooms. 8 minutes. See you back in 8 minutes. And you can call it.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you got a feel for what that would feel like in your breakout rooms there.
So, yes, welcome back and excellent. We do want to get you to write something in the chat. I do for closure. So again, for closure, then on part 5 would be using a sticky note with each unique idea. That's at your small group, a group of 4. So just as Susan said, like everyone's going to say massive jumper, and that's really powerful. Some of the most important things when every table group has a sticky note for massive jumper, one, that's just so affirming, right? Students, it's this nice movement. Like I have 10 groups, so 10 students, first student comes up, puts it on. Anyone else have that same one? They come up one at a time, or like they kind of make a line because there's so many of them, and they put it up, and that just resonates, and that's an easy win, and there's kind of safety in numbers. So all of those kind of positive things there. And then by having a unique idea that stops all 40 students saying wait. And so in any case, that brings, and then of course, you know, what do we need to know and measure? So that the goal is one sticky note for what's something we need to know and measure, what's something we need to investigate, and that would, and what's something we need to create a mathematical model for a thrilling safe jump. Okay, we are really short on time, but just the chance to give a one-liner feedback, maybe just 30 seconds on this one. How was your experience? Anything you want to kind of share out being in the student role there? You know, there was the verbal talking, and then the, you know, just what are the the important moments. That was meant to be like low barrier. You're just saying like beginning, middle, and end. You could even get it, but some students add more to that. It just about 15 seconds if people want to just write anything. we are going to try to get in one more breakout room. Yeah, I see the chat starting up.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, this does definitely take a lot of time, and that's a lot of time with students talking. So hopefully that's a good thing. That gallery walk too is a really nice moment in class. Okay, well, I'm sensitive to the time, and we want to make sure to end right on time. So we're going to keep going, and I'll hand it over to Susan to actually, I got to get to the right slide.
That helps.
Yep.
So
And
we
then, yeah,
did
sorry.
see in the opening that some of you are very familiar with the AB Partner Talk, and this is a really fundamental part of protocol that we want to share with you. We have a number of iterations, and you could see where the driving question board was in the beginning. This can be used in the middle when kids are learning a little bit more about a particular topic. And we're going to share very briefly, we're going to go over 4 different versions of AB Partner Talk that are used in the Patterns curriculum.
Excellent. And here's the first one.
So this one is just what the kinds of questions that students ask. So the idea is that in AB Partner Talk, one student is A, one student is B, and A, you go through and these are questions that A can ask, and then B is really doing active listening. And then the idea is that when you get to the end of the protocol, you switch. And so the person who was A now becomes B, and the person who was B now becomes A. So both 2 students play both roles, both as speakers and as listeners.
Excellent. And to just kind of go rapid fire with these next couple, there was that question about color coding, and the color coding used to function as the number. So you would do red, blue, yellow, green, but we did add that number just for many times you're printing something and it's not in color. So the color is now a little bit redundant with the number, but we still like it. Any chance you could have to, we never have a very big image in color, but many of the scripts and the slides that have scripts that we're releasing more and more of those, that color coding is just that visual aid, and it's really helpful, but technically with the number now, those both do the same thing. Okay, so listen and compare, and we just want to show these, and if you're already familiar with them, then we don't need to, but there's just so often that or I'll just speak for myself, and that I ask a question and it just falls flat, right? I just have that, like, no one responds. And so these are not magical, but at the same time, they push past some of the barriers people said, and they don't fix everything, but just knowing who is supposed to go first and who are they talking to. And there
what
was
is the purpose
go
of the
ahead.
talk? And like why are they talking? Like, as a teacher, you want to know that, so you pick the appropriate protocol.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the time. I think we're so close. Actually, okay. So revoice and compare. I'm just going to list the titles. Interpret and compare. Interpret and analyze. So there's lots. There's even more in that 0 poster file folder. We want to have you do one more, though. Really did want to get that second one. Here's an energy transfer. This is from the World Series a couple years ago. Pitcher, the batter hits it, and then the ball hits the batter's ankle. And so this is a thermal imaging camera. It can see heat, infrared. So we're going to pop you back into breakout rooms just for 3 minutes. So just try it, right? A couple people mentioned how it's good to be in that student hat and experience it, and just let you think about it and noodle on it. So I'm going to get those breakout rooms open.
And like Bradford's doing that, think about energy transfer and transformation as your focus for what you will be talking about in your AB Partner Talk. So where is there an energy transfer, or where is there an energy transformation, and why do you think that is?
Yep, practicing that academic vocabulary. Okay, we'll open the rooms and see you back in 3 minutes. Welcome back. Sorry, that was a little rushed, But couple last comments and information to share is challenge before our next webinar. And I know there's actually a ton of expertise in the webinar, really hoping to utilize that with the PLC that is upcoming. But our next webinar session, these were meant to kind of prime, and for anyone totally new or just looking to add those toolbox strategies. Day 2 of the webinar is October 25th, and then the PLC, which is really participant driven, so really hoping to utilize the expertise in this webinar. So the links, Susan has put the links for the talk protocol if you want to try one of those or try another one. There is the exit ticket. And with that, I'll just throw it over to Susan for some last closing comments. Oh, you're muted. I might have done that.
Just quickly go to slide 59. I just wanted to, it's the one right before this one. This shows you where we were today and what we have gone over with you. So if it did feel like we did a lot, we actually did a lot. And we really encourage you to use this part 1 to move to the part 2 and try something that we talked about tonight or something else you're curious about, another protocol from this diagram, so that you could come in for the part 2 and share that experience with your colleagues. Because I did see in the chat that many of you found that valuable of talking with other teachers. There'll be more space for that in part 2. Plus, we're going to do some of the other ones we didn't get to tonight. So, and we're going to try to do it with the student hat as well, so you can kind of try them out. And you can see on the talk protocols we used today link that you'll see the talk protocols we're going to use in part 2. So if you want to have a little preview of what we're going to do next time, that would be in there. We really would love if you would do the exit ticket. That helps with our grant. There's a couple of questions there that are really for our grant reporting, and we feel we can ask that of you since we're because of the $50 an hour for attending. We know not everybody will have a chance to do it, but it's very helpful for us to see if we're making an impact on you. If you could do that for us, it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes.
Thank you. And someone asked, a couple people asked for the links in the email. So we'll get those links in the email. If you're willing to unmute, I didn't do this in my last webinar and it bothered me for days. So if you are willing to just unmute, we'll do a 3, 2, 1 countdown and then hopefully see you October 25th. So if you're willing, 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, and if anyone, Susan and I will be here if there's just questions that didn't make sense to ask during the session. We'll